Sending Mr. Lee. Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of Blue Light Banter, where today we will be doing the story of Greg. Big Griegsy, as the Scots call him.
Right, Griegs.
So, start off with, what were you doing before the police?
For the police, I worked for the NHS for 5 years. I worked as a rehabilitation technician in the orthotics department at York Hill Hospital. So that's what I did up there. So that was like my sort of apprenticeship. So like I left school at 16. Well, before that, I worked in JD Sports. I worked in JD Sports when I left school, which was shit. I was very bad at it. Stuff used to get stolen out of my area all the time. And then I got an apprenticeship. So I went to college, done manufacturing engineering, and basically done like a 2-year apprenticeship sort of thing with the NHS. And then I was qualified as an orthotic technician, essentially. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
No. So basically, you know when you go to the orthodontist for your teeth and you get like braces, but we did it for like bones.
Oh, I didn't know that. Even I didn't know that.
That's cool. So even like stuff like a TLSO, like a thoracic lumbar sacral orthosis. So if we had kids with like spines out of alignment and stuff like that, like they would obviously go in for surgery, and then we would make like spinal braces. We would make like hip, knee, ankle, foot orthosis. Like they were called like HCAFOs, and it was basically just for like straightening bones and joints. We did a lot of like gait analysis stuff. So we make insoles, wheelchairs.
What were you like at school before?
I was very bad at school.
Academically or just naughty?
No, like I was super smart, but I think that's why I was so bad, because I was so bored all the time. Like the teachers would teach us stuff and I'd be like, right, cool. And then I'd be like, why are we spending a full lesson going over the thing that you've taught us? You could have taught us in like 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? I was very bad at school.
I'm in agreement with you there. How kind of like best do you learn? Do you kind of learn best from like reading stuff, or do you learn best from like listening to people?
I think listening. Like I can read stuff and remember it. Like I've got a very, very good memory for everything. So for like a lot of exams and stuff, I would just memorize everything from like a textbook or whatever. I would just memorize it all. But it was mainly just the want to do it. I think like I just didn't understand why I was doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was the one thing, and I found it so difficult to like concentrate in class. And like genuinely, I would go in and sit in class, and I would like talk to myself, and I'd be like, right, don't get kicked out of class. Don't get kicked out of class. And then 10 minutes later, I would be standing outside in the corridor thinking, what happened? Like, how did I get sent out of class again? Yeah, but I think it was mainly just from like boredom stuff as well. Like, I mean, a lot of the stuff was just so boring at school. I found like I really liked biology. I liked biology. Biology was really fun, and English. I liked English. But everything else I just thought was just super boring.
What about PE?
PE, our school wasn't very good. Like we never really had like a structure with PE, so there was never anything fun that we did in PE. It was let's go and jump on a trampoline. I was like, why?
I had this. She looked like Mrs. Trunchbull, PE teacher, and she used to. I remember
Mrs. Trunchbull yesterday.
Yeah, I remember having like tonsillitis, so I got written a note to say I couldn't join in. She was like, "Yes, you can. Get that netball." And I was like, "Absolutely fucking not."
Yeah.
So I was naughty that day just so she wouldn't accept me in class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shit. I mean, PE was okay because it wasn't boring. I found the rest of the stuff just super, super boring. Yeah, super boring. See, I didn't do very well at school. But then, like, I was always so smart. Like, even when I went to do my engineering stuff, like, I got all of the highest marks across 2 years in all of the exams, just because I knew that it was kind of interesting. Like, as boring as it is, thinking about, like, the tensile strength of different materials and stuff, like, I just found it quite exciting because you could, like, make stuff. I found that quite exciting. And then again, like, even in the police with the exams and stuff like that, I passed every exam first time. Super easy, super straightforward. Like, yeah. So it was never really the sort of lack of intelligence. I just thought I just couldn't focus in school.
What made you join the police?
I always wanted to be in the police. I wanted to join the cadets when I was 16, but the year that I was about to turn 16, they basically got rid of the cadets for the police, so I couldn't join. And then I did try to join. When did I join? I joined in 2014. So it was probably 2011. I think I tried to join and I failed the interview for it. But I had like zero idea what to expect. Like I didn't even know, I didn't know anyone in the police. Like I think a lot of times when people join the police, like they know people who are already in it, so they can be like, yeah. So for your interviews, like look up stuff about the Police Service of Scotland, find out about like what their sort of duties are, like the basic like divisions and the areas and stuff like that. I literally had no idea what the interview would consist of. And I think they kind of knew that when I got there, and I was like,
To do like a search assessment centre when you first went, or was it just like an interview for you?
we had like an initial interview. So the time that I got through the full process, you had like an initial interview, the first one. No, you had you had like your standard entrance tests.
Yeah.
So basically, I had like a basic maths test, a basic English test, and there was something else. I can't remember what the other one was, but yeah, it was basic tests. Everyone kind of got through them, and then you went to your first interview, and I think there was a interview, and then there was an assessment centre a couple months later, and then there was your final interview, and then like fitness tests along the way, sort of thing.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when I joined, it was like a search assessment centre, and the amount of revision I did for it, you can get like books on it like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you did a normal maths test and English test, I think, just to check that you could actually write your own name.
Yeah.
And there was these like scenario things, but it was so awkward and just not realistic. You'd have somebody in a room just going, I don't like what I bought at Westfield Shopping Centre today, or something like that. And you're like, I don't
The
care.
assessment centre was daft. And that's the thing, like they were like, oh, we just want to see like how you interact like in groups and stuff like that. I was
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, but everyone's like an adult, mate. Like we've been in groups before, like just talks.
It's so unrealistic though, but
Yeah.
um,
But yeah, no, that was 2000, probably 2011. I think I tried to join, and then I basically got knocked back, and then I joined and got in 2014 while I was working in the hospital.
kind of what was your career like? What does it look like with job roles and
So
that?
I initially went to we had like the community policing and response policing teams within like the division, and that was back when it was like the old community policing. So you had like group one, group two, group three, group four, group five, and then you had groups one through to five with response policing as well. And I was group three community policing in a place called Fergusley Park in Paisley, which is wild, like absolutely wild. So it was a very, very good place to learn. I was in CP for just over a year, I think, and then I got moved up to response, and I think I was there for a couple of years. But I was very, very proactive. Like my first tutor, like kind of drilled it into me, and he was like for like stop searches and all that kind of stuff, and he was like try and get so we like you guys would have the same Misuse of Drugs Act, but I don't know if you have the same
Yeah.
codes for each one. So we would have like a 5-2, which is just like a possession charge. Like each day he'd be like, right, we need to go out and get a couple of 5-2s. That's what we would sort of call it. And again, working where we worked, it was easy to do, and it was good to have that sort of proactive workload as well. And then I was on response at Paisley, and my supervisor brought me in one day and he said, do you know you've got the highest record of work in the division for like proactive returns? He's like, there's literally, even all the proactive units, he's like, no one's getting the stuff that you're kind of getting. So I was very good at that. And then the supervisor from the violence reduction unit basically came one day and said, we want Greg to come down to the VRU, which was back down at Ferguson Park, but that was like a plain clothes role. So I basically got moved down there in 2017, and then I was in the VRU for about 3.5 years, and then I moved to Intel before I left.
What did you do in Intel?
Mainly like the data management side of things. So like if intelligence stuff came in, we would sort of just assess it and again risk assess a lot of stuff as well for like the division, which was all right. I mean, it was fine, but again, a lot of the stuff was. I mean, I wouldn't say it was unnecessary, but a lot of times, like your supervisors would make you spend a full day doing something so that it kind of covered everyone's arses. Like it'd be
Yeah.
like a stupid log that would come in, even if you were on at the weekend. Like you would get some stupid log coming in, and you knew all the nominals, so you'd be like, "Well, that's not like relevant. Like we don't really need that. We don't need to like do everything for it. But then there would be some DI who was on call at the weekend who'd be like, yeah, we just need to do everything. They'd like throw the balloon up in the air for it, and you would find yourself doing so much more. So I mean, Intel was okay, but I wanted to go to Oct2. That was the kind of end goal with the Intel stuff, and I thought it'd be a good kind of way to get in there. But I definitely preferred being out and about rather than being office based.
How kind of did you get into the like coaching side of things? Like, because you obviously like the founder of Blue Light Coaching. You
Yeah,
kind of
so I was like always super skinny when I was young, and I was very, very. I wouldn't even say paranoid about it. I was just very much aware of it, like how skinny I was, because I'm like 6'4", so I'm very, very tall. I was always the tallest one out of like all my friends, but I just felt. And to be fair, see, looking back now, I probably wasn't. I just looked really skinny because I was so tall at the time. So I get into like bodybuilding when I was like 15, 16. Just I think the same way that most people do. I just had weights in my room. My big cousin gave me like a bench with a barbell, so I literally just worked out in my room. And I had a YouTube channel back then as well, like a bodybuilding YouTube channel. And this was like before this was even a thing. There was like a couple of people who I don't even think do it anymore who had YouTube channels as well. But I would confidently say I was the only person in the UK at the time who had a YouTube channel for like natural bodybuilding. So I would do like different series on it, and I would do like breaking down macronutrients, like doing like photo shoot stuff, like breaking down gaining phases, weight loss phases, how to balance calories, progressive overload in the gym, all this stuff. And it was actually quite a good channel, I think, at the time. And I think that was one of my biggest regrets in life was closing that down. But then obviously when I joined the police, they were like, you can't have social media. So I basically just deleted it all because there was no money from it then. Like no one was really
no.
making money. Like Instagram wasn't really a thing. So yeah, that was kind of how I initially get into it. And obviously I loved it. Like I planned on competing in the natural bodybuilding shows in the UK. So they had like the BNBF. So just in case anyone doesn't know, because there's loads of folk who like pretend to be like natural, but they compete in like the PCA shows and all that. So like the BNBF is the British Natural Bodybuilding Federation, and then there's a UK Drug Free Bodybuilding Association. And I wanted to compete in these shows. You basically joined as a member, and then you would get like random drug tests, and then they would give you like polygraph tests as well. So they would just come to your house and test you. And I wanted to do that and then document all that alongside like the YouTube stuff as well. But then there was no money in it. And then obviously I got accepted into the police, and it was like I don't know what it was, like 23 grand or something starting. I thought, well, that's good. So I basically just deleted all that because I thought there's no way that I can risk having that channel and doing this stuff alongside like my career sort of thing, because like the fitness stuff wasn't really a thing at the time. Do you know that way? Like there was no sort of clear career path with it as well. And then trying to like explain to like my family about like bodybuilding, like yeah,
Yeah.
it was weird. So that was kind of how I got into it. And then obviously I loved just going to the gym and training, so that was just something that I kept up throughout my time in the police. And then in terms of the actual coaching side of things, that really just came from being like kind of the big guy on my shift who was like in good shape, who was like kind of well built as well. So again, a lot of people would be like, what should I do to like lose weight? What should I do with this? And people just started kind of approaching me about it on shift, and I started coaching people on shift. And yeah, and then it basically just got to the point where it was too busy to do both. And I was like, I need to pick and choose which one I want to do. And obviously I loved the police. I never wanted to leave the police. I had 15 years pension. Like even that was difficult stepping away from that, because I was like, I've been paying this pension for 15 years, and now I need to become self-employed sort of thing. So that was all this stuff was in my head when I was leaving the job, and there was no sort of clear path with like the coaching side of things either, because there wasn't. I just think it was that clear in terms of how to do it all, how to actually run a business. Because although you know what you're doing with coaching, it's like, well, you need to learn how to run a business. So that's the main thing that I've been
Yeah.
learning since I've left as well. But yeah.
What's kind of like, obviously, because you went from like a bodybuilding style, probably split eating, kind of
Mhm.
very probably strict and things like that, to the police. How was that kind of the fitness and the healthy lifestyle? How was the switch for you?
It was actually like really difficult. Like mentally, I wouldn't get like anxiety about it, like in any way, shape, or form, but like I would be very much aware of the fact that even when I was in CP at the start, like community policing, my tutor would be like, let's go out on foot today. And most of the times we would be out on foot. So we'd be doing like 20,000 steps a day. And I used to just get so nervous that I was going to get like super skinny again. So I was eating like 6,000 plus calories a day just so that I didn't like lose weight. And then he'd be like, let's go on the bikes. And I'd be like, no. Like thinking about muscle drop off, all this kind of shit. Like I was like, no, let's just go out on foot, like low intensity, steady state. We'll keep it lean. So yeah, it definitely impacted it. I think I used to train 6 days a week, and I was very kind of antisocial with training. Like even when I had even if I was like going on dates and stuff, like or going out with my mates, they'd be like, "Oh, we're going to do this on Friday," and I'd be like, "Nope, I'm going to the gym." Or like if I was dating like new girls or whatever, they'd be like, "Oh, do you want to go and meet up on Sunday?" I'd be like, "No, I'm going to the gym on Sunday. I'll maybe see you kind of next week or whatever." So it was definitely a massive part of my life, and I think I put a lot more stress on it when I joined the police as well, because like that, I think I thought it had to be the way that I was doing it before, in terms of like every sort of 2 hours, trying to get protein in, like trying to train 6 days a week. And I think I stayed, so I used to do like a very complicated training program. It was legs, push, pull, off, legs, push, pull.
Yeah.
But every single week was a
Same with me.
rotation. But then every single one was a rotation. So I would have like legs, push, pull, A, legs, push, pull,
Yeah.
A. And then in the next week, I would do legs, push, pull, B, legs, push, pull, B. And it would
Yeah.
go all the way through to like C. And there's all the stuff that you thought you had to do at the time. And my physique now looks better than it did when I was doing all this shit years and years ago. Do you know that way?
Mhm.
But back then, we didn't even have stuff like that. Like, I mean, the stuff that I taught on my YouTube channel was all sort of the correct stuff, like if it fits your macros, but still trying to eat reasonably well, still trying to sort of hit protein targets, calorie targets if you've had busy days. But then I found it so difficult to sort of implement that myself. And I think I stayed on like a 6 time per week training split for like 6 months. And I don't think I once got to the gym 6 days a week. And then I was like, right, fuck, I need to change what I'm doing with this. Because even then, like I think it was probably a good thing for me, because even then, like, especially being a probationer, you kind of just did as you were told. So like sometimes our gaffer would come in and be like, right, okay, back shift at the weekend, everyone's getting a pizza. And you couldn't then not really take part in it. So for me, it was like, right, okay, learning how to manage these things. So like banking calories for it. Even if I had a set of weekend back shifts approaching, I would sort of bank calories anyway, even if I thought I'll bring my own stuff with me, just in case somebody was like, right, you're getting a pizza, and you'd be like, right, okay, sort of thing. So yeah, it definitely changed. And then the training side of things, I mean, I knew everything about training, nutrition. Like I'd literally studied this pretty much all day, every day from the age of like 15, because I was just obsessed with it, like massively obsessed with it. There was an old website called bodybuilding.com, and I had like a profile on bodybuilding.com, and you had like body space. You would like upload pictures, you would upload measurements, you could interact with other people from all around the world. Most of them were America or Canada. There wasn't very many from the UK, but again, a lot of stuff on there was like people putting notes in. So it was like I had a very, very good knowledge about all this stuff. And then I thought, right, okay, what is the basics that I need to do? Like for me to build muscle tissue, what do I need to do? And I was like, progressive overload in the gym, be in a slight surplus, like manage your food, stick to your calories, stick to your protein. If I'm in a weight loss phase, try and maintain strength, try and hit calories and protein. And as soon as I kind of realized that and it clicked, I was like, oh, right, okay, so that's all I need to do. And then I started to make progress again. So it definitely had to adapt a lot when I started working shifts. And again, like you'll know, a lot of the stuff was just dealing with stressful stuff and then not performing that way on the gym because your head's elsewhere, or you've got like a stressful court date coming up and you're like, oh fuck, I've got this to do for
Yeah.
court, I've got this to do for the PF, I've got this to do, especially like even in the VRU, we would have trips down to England and do all this stuff, and it was just super, super busy. So it was difficult to switch off at times. So sometimes you would go to the gym and kind of just half-ass a session. But then I started doing, again, what I would ask clients to do now is focus on like the big movements. So like if you have 6 or 7 movements across like a training day and you've got an hour to get into the gym or 45 minutes, just focus on the big compound lifts and then just leave, because you're going to get the most bang from your buck for that. You can give the mental focus that you need to give for those movements and then just leave. And you'll get the most progress from that as well. So
Yeah, I always say to people as well, you know what shifts you work best on? I was
Mhm.
always shockingly shit on early. I never used to train after earlies because you're always going to get held on late anyway. So I used to try and train before every shift. So whether it meant getting to the gym for like 5 in the morning or whether it meant going before a late or a night, I'd always use like that protected time. because I'd always find that I was in a better headspace and I'd get more out of my session.
Yeah.
So.
And that was the one thing. I say that to everyone now, and I think it's like obviously the clients we work with get ridiculous results, but I think it is all the stuff that's gone behind it, like the years of us being in the job, trying all these different things, and just then implementing it and seeing what works. Like as you said, like the protected time, I would then physical diary, like a paper diary, and before each one of shifts, I would plan everything out. Like, when am I least likely to be impacted by work? So if I had weekend back shifts, I'd be like, right, no gym at the weekend back shifts. Like we can't go the weekend back shifts. And you might still have time to do it, but if I'd put a session in for like Sunday morning and I get held on for 4 hours on the Saturday night, that's one session wasted sort of thing. So for me, I'd be like, right, okay, if I'm training 4 days over the course of the week, plan it in on the days where it's going to be less likely to be impacted by shifts. And that's what you said, the protected time. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I found that was useful. And to be fair, even now, I will still plan my weeks out. I'll know that I know when I can get sessions in, when I can't, when I can get my steps in. I'll try and kind of break it up in the day and all that sort of stuff. So it does help. So going on to what's like your opinion of fitness in the police now? Like let's start with like what the fitness test. What's your opinion of the fitness test?
I think the fitness test is the most pathetic thing I've ever heard of in my life. Like the mile and a half, we used to have to do a mile and a half, and I think we had to do it under 10 minutes when I joined. Oh no, it was under 12 minutes. But I think they said try and get it under 10 minutes. And even that wasn't that difficult, but it was difficult enough, I think. And I think it's like a basic standard of fitness. A mile and a half in under 12 minutes is reasonable. Like I would still be quite happy if it was that. And I think back then you could always tell when probationers came to the division because they were like gone. They were like super skinny, like looked super, super fit, super fresh. So you could always kind of tell when it was like new probationers coming in. And now it's the opposite. Apparently now for the fitness test for Police Scotland, certainly you just have to look like you're trying. Like it's literally the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. Because, I mean, if you then transfer that over into real life situations and you say there's Greg, the cop, who can do a mile and a half in under 10 minutes, which isn't great. I mean, one of my best mates in the police was ex-military like you. He had like a 7 minute mile and a half. He was just ridiculously fast. But then again, even for the normal standard of fitness, I was still up there because most people would have been 10 minutes or over. And I was like 9 minutes, something I think for most of my mile and a half. And even then, I didn't feel massively fit. If I was chasing people at work or if I was running up and down stairs, like, I just think if you then transfer over that sort of like strange ethos into real life policing situations, it just doesn't work. Like, if you are running up a flight of stairs because the lift's fucked to save one of your colleagues and you don't get up the stairs, but you tried hard, like, it's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. I think sometimes they forget it's the police. Do you know what I mean? And I think it kind of shits on all the, because there's loads of folk I know in the job who are extremely competent and fit. And I think it kind of shits on them as well because it's embarrassing. Like, it is embarrassing.
No, I know what you mean. I think, I mean, I had a conversation the other day. A couple of people messaged me from Kent to say roles in the SSTU had opened up, so the Staff Safety Training Unit, and I would have loved to have gone there back in the day. Like, well, probably like up until last year, to be fair, because I really like the people there. I think they're fantastic, but I cry at the moment with the fit because they obviously deal with all the fitness. I couldn't deal with it. I'd just be like, just stop making excuses, just go and do it.
I think it also encourages the wrong type of people to apply for the job, because everyone's saying now the people that you're getting in aren't the right type of people. And it's well, yeah, but then if you said, right, okay, we're doing a mile and a half in under 10 minutes, or under 12 minutes, sorry, you'll get more people who are better suited for the job applying for the job, because you're then raising the standards. So it's then going to be people with higher standards of themselves and their own fitness who go, right, okay, I'm going to go for that job because I know that I can do it. And if not, I want to challenge myself and do it. Like, even for me, like, so obviously I just did like bodybuilding. Like, my mum used to make fun of me because my legs were so big, like my quads were so big. So I couldn't get like jeans to fit my legs. When I used to walk, like, I had to walk with my legs like wide because I couldn't like move my legs together basically. So anyway, I then went to do my mile and a half for the police, and I was 16 minutes the first time I timed it. I'd not ran in years. All I'd done was squats, deadlifts, everything. My legs were huge at the time. So I was carrying all this muscle tissue and I found it really difficult. So I went from 16 minutes in November to 9.5 minutes for my first fitness test, which was like April, I think. And I lost a shitload of weight as well. I just stopped going to the gym. I stopped resistance training and I started doing all the fitness stuff. And actually, my knees, I've got a thing called chondromalacia patella in both my knees. And again, that was from the muscle drop off in my legs because my knees then started like tracking differently because my legs were so strong, like my vastus medialis, vastus lateralis were so strong. They then got really, really weak because I was just running all the time, or certainly weak in relation to where they were. So my knees then started moving out of alignment. So basically, all the cartilage in my knees is like gone. But you think if I'm willing to do that, to do the job and be able to do the job properly, why is other people not? Like, why should we lower the standards for it? Because again, coming down to officer safety as well, it's ridiculous.
No.
Like the other times that we hear stories, I put a video up the other week. It was, I won't say who it was, but one of the clients that I work with, they had a foot pursuit, bad guy with a knife. It was like a big 2-8, like a big disturbance. Bad guy with a knife. They get out of the car. His neighbour, fucking useless, one of those ones. He jumped out the car, gave pursuit. His neighbour, apparently, he never looked back to see where they were. He then caught the bad guy and was walking back to the car. Neighbour was nowhere to be seen. Thought, oh, maybe they're away to catch somebody else, and they were just like resting against the wall, out of breath. I think it's pathetic. If I was in charge of that, I would immediately fire them on the spot, or make them say, "You get a fitness test in 3 weeks, sort yourself out, or 3 months, sort yourself out." Like from an officer safety standpoint, it is ridiculous.
So that kind of answers the standard of fitness in general, like from when you can visually look at police officers, the standard of fitness. What's kind of like your dropped 100%.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult because there's so many cops that I know that I used to work with who did prioritise fitness. Like most of them, like a lot of folk did. And obviously there was the occasional couple on your shift who were like older, who like had kids, who weren't unfit or like massively unfit, but just didn't really do stuff outside of it. But a lot of the guys that I was on shift with, like we would go to the gym together, they would go for like hill walks, do runs, stuff like that. So it was definitely a thing, but now I think it's just getting worse and worse. Like no one really seems to do anything. And I think, I mean, like it's totally different. Like I think even the guy that I used to work with who was ex-military, like he was ex-military, but he was basically an officer in the army, so he was like a reserve. But again, like I don't think it's all just about being like big and like muscular. Do you know what I mean? Because he was probably one of the most competent cops that I've worked with. Like a lot of times we would get in foot pursuits and he would just be miles ahead, catch them like immediately, super, super fit, super agile. Like his strength to body weight ratio was like perfect as well. So it doesn't have to be about being massive sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? But I think certainly being fit, being able to do your job and at least like continuously trying to be better at it. I just don't think there's any need for it now. Like, I mean, there's no annual fitness test. There's no nothing. Like, I think, see if you brought back like a mile and a half once a year and people could push for it, like, it just means, well, yeah, you need to stay on top of your fitness. You've also chosen to be a cop. Like, if you don't want to do it, go and be a teacher or go and be a lawyer, whatever. Like, if you want to be in the police, it should be your number one thing to focus on.
100%. And like, you put yourself in instances like a guy with a chainsaw running after you. I'm sure you're not going to fucking moan about you being.
Well, that was actually two people that I used to work with. One of the guy that was there, I actually joined with, and the girl used to work on in the same office as myself, but they were the group in front of us. So there was a crossover there. So I knew both of them quite well, and they're both really fit.
Yeah.
And if they weren't, they probably wouldn't be here.
You'll probably be thankful that you were tested at that point. Like the 5.4 itself, I didn't think was high enough, and definitely not now 3.7. Like you said, it
It's
should
just a walk. Like I don't see the point in doing it if you can walk it. Like, oh yeah, we're just going to test your ability to walk, mate. Like it's so stupid.
I mean, it's just it is abysmal. But I just obviously I think it needs to be job relating. So if you're in a very much a DC role where you're not going to be in foot pursuits, then maybe it drops a little bit, but it needs to be higher for response policing. 100%.
Yeah. But again, even then, like CID roles, you still don't know what you're going to have to deal with.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you still don't know what you're going to have to deal with, whether you're going to interview somebody and you're going to pick them up at the house, whether you're doing like an OCAP turn and you're going to do something, because these people are going to kick off more than likely. Well, a lot of the time they won't, but you never know. You just never know. So if you're completely useless because you look like bubblegum, because you eat shite all the time and you don't go to the gym, you don't do anything, like, it is still your job. Like, people are still going to try and fight with you. And I think that's the number one thing that they forget now is you're still a cop. Like, people hate the cops. So somebody's going to try and fight with you. Like, I used to hate working with useless people. I remember once vividly, I was driving to custody with a prisoner in the back seat. And there was a guy I was working with at the time. And the prisoner was basically, I was driving along the motorway in the car. The guy was in the back behind me, and the prisoner was on this side, because obviously I never sat the prisoner behind the driver. And he kept kicking through at my arm. And I was like, mate, can you get a fucking hold of that guy in the back seat? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he would like try and like hold him. And I was driving and he would just keep fucking kicking through at me. And eventually I just pulled the car over and I was like, right, get out, you're driving, I'm sitting in the back with him. And I just sat in the back, literally held his cuffs, restrained him to custody. I thought, how difficult is that? Like, how difficult is that to do? You're unable to do your job. If he kicked me and I crashed the car, we're fucked. Like, we're all fucked. So just do your job properly. Don't be a shite bag. Don't be afraid to put hands on people.
But
But be confident in your abilities as well.
That's what people are so afraid of now, is their, like I say, the fitness side of things comes into it with restraining, but also the awareness of what they can do. If someone's hitting you, hit them back. I've punched someone in the face before. I don't give a fuck. I've learned off the back of it because to bite me, they got a smack in the face. People that spit at me, I've probably punched quite a few people in the face before. It's shocking.
But then it's also just saying, well, it's justifiable. But then you're also not going to get people like that joining the police now, because they're pandering to like I think now they're trying to make the police like a babysitting group, and it's not right for the cops that, again, and it's not, because I mean, even the other day I had a new guy come on board to work with myself, who is same height as myself, 6'4", big strong guy, goes to the gym, goes to Thai boxing 4 times a week. You think he's going to be a fantastic cop? I can just tell. 100%. He's at the college. He's not even passed out yet. And he's like, I want to get on top of my fitness before I even get to division. So he's basically hired me to be his coach. And you think, fucking good on you, mate. Like, because the fitness standards aren't high enough, he's decided, well, it's not for me. Like, he still wants to be up here, sort of thing. You think he's going to be cracking. I was on shift as like an older senior. I mean, this is me 10 years now. If I'd stayed and someone like him came in, I'd be like, you're going to be good. And they would stand out a mile away, like, even for like future job roles and promotions. Well, probably not now, but for me personally, I would have way more respect for somebody like that than somebody who came in who looked like a bag of shit. The uniform didn't fit. They couldn't fucking run the length of themselves. I wouldn't give them the time of day. And it's not from a nasty point of view. I just wouldn't give them the time of day.
I've had people like that. I had a girl come on board with me. It was a while ago now. She's out of training. She's in on response now. But she was like, I want to be strong for my job role. So we went for a gaining. She was in a really good position to go for a gaining phase. And now she's going for a bit of a mini cut. So you can tell when she talks, she's so competent at what she does. She's just really, really good. So, but
like, that definitely gave me a bit of sort of hope when I spoke to that guy, because he'd messaged me on Instagram the other week and he was out 6 o'clock in the morning, out for a run at the police college. And he was like, I'm the only one out this morning, sort of thing. And I thought, even that's quite shite in and of itself. Like, this guy's going out himself for runs. And I'm sure there's probably another couple of people that he was running with. But it just gave me a bit of sort of confidence back, thinking that there's still people like that joining the job. Like, strong, competent people who want to continue their own sort of self-development so they can do their job properly. So I have no, I don't know. I'm just being careful what I say, but I have no hope in the police fitness, and I think it needs to change. I think it's probably going to take, like that incident the other week where that guy was kicking off and the cop was fighting with him and his neighbour was just standing back, not doing anything. And I'm not being funny, but you could tell that the person who stood back and didn't do anything was the type of person who would stand back and not do anything. Out of shape, not confident, body language isn't confident. And I mean, if you're dealing with Neds, they're going to pick up immediately on your body language. So if you look like you're not confident, they're going to think, I'm going to fucking try this cunt because he's obviously a shite bag. Whereas if you're both there and you're both confident and competent and he knows right people, if I do try and kick off, they're just going to fold me up and it'll be embarrassing.
Like I put a post up last night. People know how confident you are. I'm 5'1". People didn't used to mess with me because I was so confident with what I was doing, and I was like, I will put you on the floor if I need to. I used to jump on people's backs. I go dirty. I wouldn't go all this SSTU bullshit.
But you've also been in the military, been a boxer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't need to be like the male female thing, the height side of things. Like that guy that I was talking about that I joined with who was ex-military, he wasn't like a big guy in any way, shape, or form, but he was super, super confident and competent in his job role. Do you know what I mean? And people do pick up on it because there's a lot of times I would even go to houses where someone was kicking off or go to incidents where someone was kicking off and they would just immediately calm down because they would know. And I would obviously say to them as well, I'd be like, mate, fucking calm down. Obviously, in a more robust way. But they usually would. And if they didn't, you would just fold them up and cuff them and away you went. And it's safer for them. It's safer for the cops as well. Like, I remember once we were at this call, I was single crewed one day and there was 2 cops on my shift. And there was a call to this street in Paisley about a guy running about with knives in the street, right? And they basically identified this guy, given us his address. So I got there. These other 2 cops were there because I just shouted in saying I'll attend that as well because the other 2 were going. Got there, and there was like blood all over the walls and stuff like that, and there was blood all over this guy's door. So we were at the door, and I walked up, fucking chapping this guy's door, seeing if we can get in the house. No answer to the door, so I was like, wait, I'm going to go and chap the neighbour's door. But it was like these big long like closes out on the front of the building. So like if you went out the front of the building, you had to walk along. So I started walking along to like the next neighbour's house just to obviously do door to door to see if anyone was there. And as soon as like one of the guys that was there, like you could tell in his voice that he was fucking shitting himself, and he just started like shouting my name. And he's like, Greg, Greg, Greg. I was like, what? And he was like, he's coming at the door. And I was like, fucking deal with it then, mate. Like, and obviously I went back and dealt with it, but the guy was like screaming behind the door. He had these like Stanley knives in his hand, like it was like something like this weird movie. So I was like standing in front of him. He had these like Stanley knives in his hand, covered in blood. Hands were covered in blood. He was all cut to fuck as well. No idea what was happening. But you think, see if you'd went to that, and he literally just spoke to him. He put the knives down, calmed down, got to jail. I think we went to hospital as well. But you think if it's me dealing with these situations, like I just wouldn't panic and stress out about it. But the other guy who was there was panicking. You could tell in his voice that he was panicking. So you think that's not going to end well if everyone's nervous and everyone's sort of acting on emotion. Instead of just going, look, mate, you're getting to jail anyway. Put the fucking knives down, because if you don't, we're going to fold you up and you'll still be getting to jail. And he's like, aye, all right, cool. And they'll just calm down most of the time. Just how you speak to people as well. But also, I think that's the best tool, like how you can sort of get your message across to people, but then knowing that you can back it up with what you need to back it up with, I think is important. And not being useless. Like, I mean, see the amount of people that used to shout in foot pursuits, oh, I've got a foot pursuit, and then you would get there and be like, where did he go? Oh, I don't know, I never chased him. Why? Like, why did you not chase him? You can't shout in a foot pursuit. It's not a foot pursuit, it's just someone running away from the police because you've not chased them. A foot pursuit is you pursuing someone. And then you'd have like this big inquiry, searching buildings, looking for folk, getting dogs down, just because of the cop who could have chased them and even just kept eyes on them. Ran into this house, cool, let's get folk up and surround the house, let's get the shields up, blah, blah, blah. But you turn up and you'd be like, why did you not chase them? Oh, again, now you can understand why, because they don't feel confident in their abilities to chase them. Like, it's embarrassing for some people, but then you think, well, that's time for you to then make a change. Like, if you physically can't do your job and chase someone, it's time for you to make a change and decide to start being more competent or leave and do something else.
Yeah.
Like, no one's forcing you to be a cop.
No.
But you should have a high standard of fitness.
Yeah, you should, and not fucking moan about it.
Yeah.
Like different, I'm just like, oh my god, it's a 3.7 now. I'm like, fucking, leave the job then.
Yeah.
Like, leave the job.
Like, it's embarrassing. I would be embarrassed moaning about that. I don't know why people don't have that own, like, that thing about themselves. Like, see, if I would never write into a forum complaining about a 3.2 bleep test. Like, you can literally walk 3.2 on a bleep test. I mean, I don't even know what it was when I got like 7 something, I think. Because we had the 1.5 but if the weather was shit, we would do a bleep test, and I think it was like 7.9 or something. Even that was easy. Like, you would just pretend you were good at then, so you didn't have to keep doing it. But
I remember after our police training, at the end of our police training, we got to do a best effort bleep test. Obviously, I was well up for it because I was like fresh out the army, fit as fuck. Was I think I got to 12.9.
It's good.
Best effort.
That's
Like,
good.
but obviously the army bleep test, because I was used to doing bleep tests, it's a 20-meter one. I think my best effort on that was like level 14. So obviously I dropped off some fitness to get to 12.9, but you know, when you just
But it's
enjoy
still
it.
like 4 times what's required now.
Yeah, like
It's so
I
fast.
never, even
Yeah.
when I was very unhappy with myself in the police, I never struggled with 5.4. In fact, I never struggled with 9.4 for firearms. So that kind of says everything. I was still keeping on top of cardio, clearly. So
yeah. So I think the fitness standards are terrible. Like, it's actually embarrassing, and I think it's shit for the guys, like the folk that do want to do well and do actually want to be proper cops, because they'll, like that guy who signed up the other day, they'll still have a really high standard for themselves, and it's not fair on them being sort of grouped in with these other people who don't want to be shouted at, who don't want to do fitness stuff, who want to join the police. I don't even understand why they would want to join the police. Like, what about joining the police would? And I think that's why they're getting so many people in now who are coming through and then leaving because they're like, I'm not doing this. I think we're just kind of advertising to the wrong people.
yeah,
Like, see if you said, look, super strict, we've got a fitness test, you would get people in who had a standard of fitness and wanted to maintain a standard of fitness. Because you'd be like, cool, that's the job for me. Like, I don't know if I would join the police now, going back to being 20, 21 years of age. I would look at it and go, I'm not joining that. I'll probably join the army.
well,
Something that I think had more sort of
fire
standard.
service,
Yeah,
fire
something like that, or some type of, I don't know, like specialist unit somewhere where like I could utilize being like fit. Like, for me, it just, like, I love the thing about the police of being, having to kind of go to the gym to train and think, right, okay, this is going to transfer over directly to the work side of things, like Thai boxing as well. I mean, probably not the most practical for not getting complaints in the police is like doing Thai boxing, and having done Thai boxing for a long time. But I think, like, even things like jiu-jitsu, like one of the guys that I used to work with, he's, I don't know what he is, apologies if he's watching this, but he's like super, super good at jiu-jitsu. I think he now does like inputs and stuff at the college on it. But even one time he had an incident where, I'll maybe try and get him on this at some point to talk about this. He had an incident one day where they basically went into a house and this guy was hiding behind the door and fucking pinned him to the ground and was like choking him, like trying to actively kill him. For whatever reason, his neighbor couldn't get the guy off or something, and he like basically just utilized his jiu-jitsu skills and like folded the guy up super safely, apprehended him, took him to custody. And you think, having these basic skills, like the OST stuff is embarrassing, like the officer safety training stuff, a lot of that is just super embarrassing, especially now with the lower fitness standards. You think, if I go out now and two cops, or kind of average cops now, would say, you're getting to jail, and I said, no, I'm not, what are they going to do?
yeah,
Like, if you can't physically apprehend someone, do you know what I mean? If they go, right, okay, Greg, you're getting to jail, no, I'm not. Until what, the real cops turn up? Until the people who are competent and strong turn up and actually fold me up and jail me?
yeah.
Like, you're under arrest? No.
The time, am I, what is it? Detained? And they're like, yes, they fucking are detained because
Yeah.
we have powers to detain people. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I could say that. Am I detained? No, right, see you later.
Yeah. Yeah. But even physically, they can't do anything. I mean, I think even like just getting hands on with folk initially, like being super clear, you're detained, you're under arrest. But even now, it's like, well, if I decide that I'm not under arrest, then I'm not, because you physically can't arrest me because you're incompetent. And then what do you do? Actually wait until real police turn up to arrest you? Like, yeah,
Well,
does.
that concludes my questions,
Right,
mate.
no, yeah, yeah, annoyed a few people, but
Nah,
it
I mean,
does.
I think people need to hear it, and a lot of people will agree with it.
Yeah. I think even from people like us who, again, joined the job a long time ago, like, we would have way more respect for new people coming in as probationers who were physically fit, who trained outside of work, who did certain things, jiu-jitsu, Thai boxing, anything, and just focused on, okay, I'm here to be a cop, I want to be the best cop that I can be, and I
Yeah,
know that being a cop, my fitness is going to help with that. every single senior cop on your shift will be like, cool, I'll give him the time of day, or I'll give her the time of day, because they're looking after their fitness and doing what they need to do. So for any new people watching, it's super important. Ideal.
But yeah, happy days.
Not really my story, just a rant about the fitness levels in the place.
I mean, it was the start.
Yeah.
The first
It was at the
25
start.
minutes. The first 25
Everyone likes
minutes.
it, right, though. Everyone likes it, right?
The first
But cool.
25 minutes for your story, mate.
Yeah. Ideal, though, mate. Been a pleasure. That
No
ends
worries.
episode 3 of the Blue Light Banter podcast. See you, mate. Stay safe.
See you later.